I didn't want to choose between being there for my son physically as a mother and providing for him monetarily with income. Like, I just hated that that was the choice. I could go work for someone, I could get like $20 an hour, and then I could pay half of that at least for childcare. It just doesn't make sense. It was really important to me to be able to offer that to the rest of our team because I saw all these people having babies and I was like, let's make this happen. Let's have these babies at Bitchin Sauce. The people now are like getting potty trained. They have kinder readiness programs. Whenever I go in there, I'm like, this is so much better than any Montessori program I've ever seen. Giving is receiving. You give your team, you get back a team that works hard and is happy, and you're not spending money having to hire and train new people. We have people who are just working so hard all the time. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we have their kids in a room. They can go and say hi. It's not like a desperation to wrap up and just go home as soon as the bell rings. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. I'm live with Starr Edwards, co-founder and CEO of Bitchin Sauce. It's awesome to have you here today, Starr.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my pleasure. So glad to be here.
Likewise, I love Bitchin Sauce, and I think most people that have tried it love it too. I love it that it's like a healthy gateway for people in terms of, it's a fun brand, it's accessible, but it's also clean. And it's a great way for people to, slather it up on a taco, on vegetables, eat it by itself even. And excited to hear more about how you built the brand. And I know there's a lot that you all do for your employees as you've gone into expand. So I'm grateful that you're here. And maybe for those out there that haven't heard of Bitchin Sauce yet, could you give a quick intro on who you are and what you've built and what you're building?
Yeah. So I'm Starr Edwards, and Bitchin Sauce is its own fun thing. I like that you said gateway because a lot of times we get asked, how much crack we put in it, and the answer is a lot.
Crack?
Yeah. No, Bitchin Sauce is an almond-based dip. It's vegan, it's gluten-free, it's all the fun things, but mostly it just tastes really good. And, I made it way back when I was a teenager, just experimenting with a vegan lifestyle. I was actually a raw vegan, so it's very minimally processed too.
I was too at some point.
Right? Weren't we
Yeah.
all?
You all gotta go through that raw vegan phase. So much energy, right?
Yeah. You realize you just can't have another zucchini noodle thing. But yeah, anyways, I was a raw vegan and then decided to make this creamy, a creamy concoction because that's what I was missing. I was missing like the dairy things of life. And Bitchin sauce was what came out. I just used all the ingredients that I had in the pantry and made it the way I wanted it, and it ended up being pretty good. And then after, just eating it for like 5 years, we found ourselves in a situation where we had a small baby to take care of and needed to make ends meet. And my brilliant idea was to go to the farmer's market and sample all these, fun vegan delights. And it ended up being just, the birthplace of Bitchin sauce. Um, People tried it, they liked it, and I was, not not too proud, I guess. I was like, "That sounds good. Let's do that. Let's just sell Bitchin sauce." And so that's what we did, and we went from farmers markets to retail stores that were in the San Diego area, and then, very slowly kinda inched our way out to the rest of, Southern California and eventually the rest of the nation. So now we have Bitchin sauce pretty much everywhere in the US. It's great.
Mm. And that first time you made it, did you make it in a blender, a food processor?
Yeah, it was a blender. It was a bad blender too. It was like, I think my parents' really old, like, $10 Oster or something like that. It was, with like the tiny blades, the ones that don't get in there the way you want them to. Yeah, and so then
But they're
for
pretty
Christmas the
portable,
year
those. The nice thing
they
about them,
are.
right? Like they're like the what is it? They used to sell them in those on the TV and those infomercials. The NutriBullet and the
Yeah, it just takes to make 1 tub at a time is pretty tough. But then, yeah, my husband bought me a Vitamix, which, was the crème de la crème of the blenders, and, he got me one of those from Craigslist for Christmas the first year of Bitchin Sauce, and then we were really moving.
and what were you doing? You mentioned that you were experimenting with the vegan, lifestyle at the time. What can you give us a little bit more context as to where you were in your life? And I think at some point I read or listened that you were, like, living in a commune or, like, living with your friends and, like, a bunch of people stuffed in a house. Can you give us a little bit more context?
Yeah, so when I was raw vegan, that was when I was a little teenager, I was 16 years old. I was a pretty weird kid. I graduated high school early and, basically just, like, kind of wandered off and went and lived with friends and started working a lot. I We had moved when I was, let's see, in my sophomore year, and for some reason, I just was so annoyed that, you know, California wouldn't take all of my credits and they wanted me to stay till my senior year that I ended up, just going to community college to finish up, wrapped it up real quick, and then, like, left. And yeah, that was a really fun time actually. But I moved to Seattle and I was living with friends, and that was my raw vegan time.
Oh, so you actually created Bitchin Sauce initially? Because I know you're back in Seattle now. You actually the first R&D was in Seattle?
Yep, lots of R&D. But that was, I was still just a little teenager running around, and it wasn't until 5 years later that it was actually like, "Oh, we gave it the name Bitchin Sauce," and, decided to try and go and sell it. So, there was a really long kinda little gestation period of, the first version of Bitchin Sauce and then what ended up being taken to markets.
And when you initially were making it, was it still like the base, I think, is like nutritional yeast, almonds, oil, and like chipotle peppers and spices?
Yeah, the first version was original, it wasn't the chipotle, it was, more lemony and garlic forward, but then, as I think that was the other thing I missed a lot as a vegan was bacon.
Taste, yeah, it has a little bit of that taste, smokiness, right?
It definitely does. Once I found out, like, ooh, chipotle, if you just smoke a pepper, it's kinda like a bacon. And so I decided to use that. That's my favorite flavor. I love the chipotle.
And were you ever, like, gifting it to friends or, was it were you being known for the sauce? And, like, how did the light bulb go from, "Hey, I'm gonna use this personally in my day-to-day life," to, "This is actually something I can get up and sell"?
I was using it as I was a personal chef, was what I was doing before, we brought it to the farmer's market. But, yeah, and I was using it as a personal chef. I was giving it to my clients, and they were like, "This is delicious. We love this. Like, make some extra and leave it in the fridge for us." But the aha moment didn't come until, probably the 3rd market where we sold out of Bitchin Sauce. I was like, "People like this a lot." Like, more than just like "Oh, this is an interesting fun sample." It was like they liked it a lot. And that was when I think I realized, like, "Okay, this is gonna be a much bigger business than I had originally anticipated."
It's so cool, there's so many of these CPG stories that start with the farmer's market. Uh,
I know. Everyone says, "Oh, you have such a unique story," and I think everyone starts at the farmer's market. But I will say that San Diego is, that's the place for farmers markets, just year round and just the most amazing market managers, and we were discovered by Costco at one of the farmers markets, so it was really
wow.
very good for us.
Yeah, I was just listening to the Chomps story, and I found that it sounded a little like you guys in some ways as to, like, it was 2 guys, one wasn't even full-time as they got to 10,000,000 in revenue, something like that, like, and similarly, like, were discovered by Trader Joe's. A couple more questions on just the formulation. How did you decide there's so many different nuts out there and seeds and things that you could blend in order to make, like, a creamy vegan plant-based sauce, and I think that that was one of the most exciting things for me as I started experimenting with a plant-based lifestyle was that you could blend nuts and seeds and it like turns into like cream. How did you decide on almonds versus all the other things that you could have thrown in that blender?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually haven't gotten that one, but, it was definitely intentional. I like almonds a lot, personally. I mean, I can really geek out on them, actually, if you wanna go into, like, the history of the almond and just
Let's do it.
you want to? It's just so cool. So, first of all, like, almonds were one of the first domesticated crops, which is great. But, prior to that, we're looking at the bitter almond, which is, the source of cyanide, which will kill you. And I think that there's just something so interesting about, bitter almonds. If you eat like a handful of those, you can die. And then here you have this sweet almond that, is just an amazing powerhouse of nutrition. Um, and then, something that I've always really been excited about is just the fact that it's in California. This is where they grow. This is where they grow really well. They, have Mediterranean climate. There's only a few places in the world where that is, and we just happen to live there. So, I think, that actually did play a big role was that it was like, okay, this is like a local yeah, as opposed to, cashews, which are all coming from Asia and, even macadamias, which are super delicious. They're coming from other places, and I just kinda liked this idea of, like, this is a local nut, and it's, of the local nuts because we have a ton of them. If you ever go to a trade show, you'll see just, the US, we're just a bunch of nuts over here. That's like our main commodity. But, it's one of the more, you know, creamy and versatile nuts, I think, as opposed to, like, walnuts, which are obviously super nutritious and great, but they have a very strong flavor. Likewise, pistachios are kind of strong flavor, even though they're very good, especially in sweet things. But the almonds, really kinda lend themselves to being versatile, being creamy, and, pretty easy to work with. So, that was why I started with almonds.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about almonds is like if you want to make almond milk, you actually need to strain it because of the outer skin of it. Whereas with your sauce, you don't need blanched almonds. You could just blend the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny you mentioned that. My son, who's now 14, but when he was little, instead of making the change from, like, breastfeeding to whatever people give their kids, I don't think it's normally just cow's milk, I would make my own almond milk. So, I actually did that before making bitchin sauce, like, full-time capacity. Every morning, I was hanging out with almonds and making fresh almond milk for him every day.
Speaking of your son, I think it's his picture on the logo. How did you come up with the name?
Bitchin? Bitchin's so funny. I wasn't paying enough attention to what was going on around me, I think. I didn't I just didn't think enough about it, but man, I'm so glad I didn't because it's been a really happy accident, for our brand. So I was trying to figure out what to name the sauce to bring to the farmer's market. I knew I didn't wanna call it almond sauce because I was like, "People are gonna get grossed out by that if I'm just like, 'It's almond sauce. Eat it with a
It
stick.'"
does not sound appealing.
It doesn't, and I mean, now I think people are a little more open to it, but this is pre-plant-based movement, this is when people are still just you know, thinking paleo is health and that's it. So I was like, I don't wanna call it that. I wanna call it something, quirky and funny and wholesome. And so, um, I was like, okay, awesome sauce. Is awesome sauce taken? Awesome sauce is taken. And then I just looked up, what other words were like awesome and found bitchin'.
And how many years ago did you start now?
Started in 2010, so, yeah, we just finished up our year 12 and year 13 is going strong.
Amazing. I think one of the other cool parts of it is that certain vegan and plant-based products have gone out of style. Like I don't know, some plant-based mayos, like some follow your heart mayos that might not have the best oils, or, maybe too much soy, or things that people have sort of consumers have sort of become vigilant of. And whereas you chose something that kind of has withstood the test of time in terms of like the check marks of like, it's vegan, it's keto, it checks a lot of those boxes for consumers as their tastes and their habits have changed.
Definitely. I think we've been really fortunate in being able to be accessible to so many different things that have come up as trends. But also, that was very intentional too, was to not just align ourselves with one dietary trend that may come and go. We are a taste forward company, and kind of hoping to give people, a healthier version, a better for you version without necessarily standing on a soapbox while we do it. So, if we can get someone to eat healthier who, would have gone straight for ranch and, downed their pizza with smothers of ranch, then that's great. Down your pizza with smothers of Bitchin sauce.
Yeah. So what were like, you mentioned going to farmers market and then expanding out to San Diego, and then eventually Costco finding you. Like, any are there any major milestones or fun stories you can share about like the breakout days or inflection points that sort of led you to where you are today with, I think, around at least 80 employees, right?
Mhm. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got around 80 employees, which is, man, amazing. Um, I think, the breakout inflection points, those are always so fun to think of. Um, Probably, getting our own commercial kitchen, that was a huge deal. And I was so nervous, and I just didn't know, I didn't know what I was doing. So everything made me nervous. But, like, just the small victories of, like, getting it, permitted, and, getting our tables in there, and eventually it was like, you know, we got we moved past blenders. That was a big deal. We bought a machine that could actually make, like, 60 tubs at a time. That was amazing. We bought a filler because I was like, "Oh, this filler is gonna help us go so fast, and we can make so much bitchin sauce." And then that filler blew up, which was also a crazy thing.
It blew up? How did it blow up?
The wire had been, like, rattling, like, very
Okay.
slowly over time, and we just didn't know, how to fully PM it, and then it just, like, crossed and
Oh my
blew up,
god. Like
and
a
that was,
bitchin' bomb.
yeah, it was a bitchin' bomb, and I just remember, just, like, kind of staring in shock as it was on fire. Had to wait for someone to come and unplug it because 'cause I'm just not good in those situations. But yeah, so that was interesting. I think, and then it was slowly growing from there. We got, a bigger kitchen, and then we moved to another kitchen that had a dock, and that was incredible. And we got our own bitchin' truck, and that was really cool. Um,
A
Getting into,
truck? Like a food
yeah,
truck?
not just no, just like a truck that would transport our product.
Like distribution.
Yeah, that was a really big deal. Um, Getting into out of California, I guess I should say, it was a really big deal. I think it was Denver was our first little spot outside of California, and, shipping product over there was like, "Whoa, this is incredible. We're making it. We're growing. This is great."
What was your mindset during that time? Were you stressed? You seem really easygoing. And yeah, like, was it just like, because you had started so by happen chance, was it just like every sort of positive moment forward was just like, were you stoic about it? Were you like, how is it like?
Yeah, I think I was, you celebrate every victory for sure, and especially when it's a family, owned and operated company. I think it's crucial that it's like work hard and play hard, so, like, we were definitely having a lot of fun, while we were doing this, even though it was like, okay, we're up late at night. I actually was just listening to the radio, Spotify this morning, and the song came on that we always used to listen to when it was cleanup time in the kitchen. And it brought back like all these feelings. But
What song was it?
it's Home by Edward Sharp. We would always put on Home when it was time to go home, and everyone, we're sweeping up the floor and cleaning up the kitchen and getting ready to go home. And it was funny. I had like a wave of exhaustion hit me this morning when I was fresh as a daisy, but it was just like I remembered the feeling of that song, right? Just being so exhausted. But yeah, we celebrated all the big wins and had a great time with that. I think otherwise I probably pretty much blacked out because I had no idea what I was doing and was just, constantly trying to grow all the different facets of the business, trying to get better with whatever our HR and payroll stuff was, trying to get better with manufacturing, trying to get better with sales, and trying to juggle all these things at the same time with just no experience.
Did you have any mentors or people kind of guiding you along the way, or did you really just learn it on your own?
I didn't have as many mentors as I probably should have had, and I think, in hindsight, I would have reached out to more of the community because there's so many people who want to help. At the time, I didn't realize it was available, um, and and so it was very much just, like, kind of a lone thing, which in some ways I actually think was good too. Kinda early on when we were at the farmer's market, I remember we had some kinda, like, negative folks around who were just like, "Oh, you'll never make it with this, you'll never make it with that." Um, "It's a bad day at the market." And I think, if we'd listened to them, which they were our mentors at that point in time, we wouldn't have gone any further. But it was a lot of not listening to them, I think that
Yeah.
pushed us ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinions, and you can ask and get more and more opinions. I think someone uh, once told me, like, as we were starting our businesses and stuff, is like, like, ask for opinions, get a lot of advice, but then shit like an elephant. Uh,
What does that
to
mean?
get rid of
Get rid of all of
get
it?
rid of most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That actually makes more sense. I think what I always tell people is I'm like, "Listen to everyone and listen to no one," like,
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense, but
The product is also perishable, which I'm sure comes with a whole host of challenges when thinking about distribution and all that. Like, how did you navigate how have you navigated that? Because a lot of founders and brands and entrepreneurs would just steer clear of that because they're just like, it's too hard, there's not enough margin, there's the product is gonna explode, or as it did,
for
it's
sure,
gonna
they
go bad, all that.
Yeah, it's really funny to me because 'cause we've had some competitors kinda pop up, along our journey, and they're like, "We're gonna tackle this space," and I'm just like, "Good luck." Like, it's hard, and I would never intentionally do this. Like, I would never be like, "I'm gonna go do refrigerated dips," knowing what I know now. It's tough. The Yeah, I think, when we started out, we had like a 7-day shelf life. But we were also, hand squeezing lemons and stuff, and very slowly we just implemented new practices, and we got to like 30 days. And then the tides kind of shifted for us when we went to HPP, which has allowed us to have, almost 6 months of shelf life.
High
Just
pressure pasteurization.
Yeah, so the same technology that they use on, cold pressed juices, we're using on our dip, which allows it to remain cold processed, you know, as it was. It wasn't ever meant to be like a cooked sauce. Um, and and yet here we have this great shelf life.
Mm. Um, how so as the team has grown now to 80 or so folks, I think something I've seen sort of from the outside in is just a lot of focus on taking care of your people. I think I saw on LinkedIn that you even have like a head of childcare on the team. How have you thought through the sort of like the community feel and the employee support and culture that you're building at Bitchin Sauce?
Yeah, we think about it a lot. I think we invested in some culture helpers, kind of early days, really. We brought in someone to help with HR, who then turned into our chief of staff. And, I think what we told her was like, people, people want to be held accountable. They want someone watching them. It was, just something that we had discovered, and it was so different than how we feel as, entrepreneurs and as business leaders. Hardly anyone is is watching us as like, trying to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But we knew that all of our employees, really thrived on that, and that we were really bad at it. So we brought in someone, who really just helped with managing our team. And one of the main projects that I gave her when she turned into chief of staff was, to start on-site childcare, which was a big deal to me because we started, to take care of our little son. And one of the things that um, just was so important to me was I didn't want to choose between being there for my son, physically as a mother, and providing for him, monetarily with income. And I just hated I just hated that that was the choice that I had to make. To I could go work for someone, and it would, I could get like 20 bucks an hour, and then I could pay half of that at least for childcare. It just like it just doesn't make sense. Like it and the math doesn't work in the favor of the mothers or fathers, or, the guardians. So it was really important to me to be able to offer that to the rest of our team, because I saw all these people having babies, and I was like, let's make this happen. Let's have these babies at Bitchin Sauce. My kids were there. We didn't have they didn't have Bitchin Kids like we have Bitchin Kids now. They had a room with some toys and a TV. But the people now are like getting potty trained. They have kinder readiness programs. They just have like the most amazing team of people watching them. Like whenever I go in there, I'm like, this is so much better than any Montessori program I've ever seen. It's amazing. So yeah, so we started with that, and then in 2020, everyone's getting a little bit burnt out, and as an essential business, I think it was really easy to feel kind of like, we're we're doing all the work, we're still making food, and a lot of the other people are not, going to their jobs right now. Um, Everyone kind of I saw the burnout, and I was like, the only way that we can actually help this is to give to people, because
Is
it's
what
just the
people?
way it is,
Gift people?
to give to people.
Oh, give to people.
So yeah, and to give our employees the opportunity to give. Um, because anytime, you're feeling like almost like stressed out, or like you don't have enough, like for me at least, without fail, the only way out of that spiral of kind of feeling bad for yourself is you give, and you realize that, you know, you actually are doing okay. You're doing okay. There's other people who can benefit from your giving, and it's like the only way out. So, um, we started doing VTO, which is volunteer time off. And we started making it available for our team members to take the last 4 hours of the work week and go and donate them and work with, different community organizations, so that, we were volunteering for them. It was great.
Amazing. So you have this Bitchin Kids. It's a childcare facility. How many kids are coming into there on a weekly basis?
Oh man, I think I just looked at it. It's a lot now. I think we're probably close to 20. Um, During the pandemic, that was a really interesting time too, because no kids were going to school. So what started as, like, oh, this is a fun benefit for people, ended up being like a necessity, because the parents were coming and they couldn't leave the kids at their houses. So we ended up having, a lot of school age kids too. That was pretty cool.
It's yeah, I think one of the companies that's most notorious for doing that is Patagonia, and it's really interesting to me as outside in like being in and around the HR and culture and employee wellness and also sustainable companies, B Corps, mission driven companies, how this idea of prioritizing their people is so paramount to how the business is built, and those businesses are built to last. You've done this in a way that's profitable, which is pretty amazing. Whereas some companies, wouldn't ever think to do this because they think it's like too big of a business expense. How do you think other companies, based off of your own personal experience, other companies can maybe shift their thinking or think about these types of programs and investing in their people in this way, in a way where it makes sense?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like what you're saying, they think this is an expense and it's hard to think about it eating away at the bottom line, right? But I think you have to really just kind of fall in with this weird understanding that, giving is receiving, right? You have to give to receive. You give to your team, you get back a team that works hard and is happy, and you're not spending money having to hire and train new people
Mm,
because they're delighted to be there. Like that's a
retention.
huge
Yeah.
exactly.
As a mil
So retention, and then, even just output. We have people who are just working so hard all the time. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that, we have their kids in a room, a couple of, just it's one suite away. They can go and say hi. It's not like a desperation to, wrap up and just, go home, as soon as the bell rings. So
yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
As a millennial, it's like as I've gotten older and I go on like somewhere like LinkedIn, it like gets me excited when I see someone that has been at a job for longer than a year or 2. It's like, "Oh, wow, they've been there for 5 to 10 years and they really believe." Whereas, like, you would think that, instant gratification, we're so used to, like, the next best thing, continuous mobility or climbing up the ladder and going from one company to the next, but, like, in this type of environment, I actually really respect and admire people that have been able, and cultures and companies that have been able to keep people for the better half of a career, their 20s. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a lot of people who are, have been around now for like 3 to 5 years. Actually, some of our first employees just celebrated their like seventh year with us. Um, and those are the first employees that we hired that were not, family members. So it's been really fun.
What else, like, if you had a magic wand and as the business grows, you can invest more in these types of programs, are there any things that are sort of like around the corner, on the horizon of things that you'd love to do that you maybe haven't done yet outside of Bitchin Kids and this kind of volunteering and giving program?
Yeah, I think something that we're really thinking about a lot more this year is really teaming up with other companies. I think, I kind of mentioned it, like I was never good at asking for help. Um, and and for, tapping into the peer network. But, as thankfully there's people on our team now who are really good at that. And it's been kind of a goal of ours this year is like, let's get other people involved. Let's reach out to, our peers in the San Diego area, and let's do volunteer time together with them. Let's reach out to our retail customers and partners, and let's figure out how we can join forces together with them, to participate in, specifically some of the charitable things that they're excited about. So really, trying to team up with each other, and then also, having like the shared learning that we have with Bitchin Kids and BTO, trying to show other companies like, hey, this is possible and it's not going to bankrupt your business.
Mm. Outside of the internal sort of community culture stuff that you're doing and sort of the outreach, I know that you all have also gotten into different verticals as well outside of CPG and food. And one of them I think is a music label, um, and then the other one I think I heard that you were even opening a taco restaurant or a small restaurant in San Diego. How have those things gone as you've kind of gotten out of the core business and used the brand and the engine in order to get into new ways of touching the end consumer person?
Yeah, I think the music is especially exciting right now. We just got back from Europe where uh, my husband and co-founders band has been traveling. He's been traveling on the road for like the past 5 months.
Wow, your husband?
Yeah. He's been touring for, like, the past 5 months and, most recently, though, in the UK and Europe, and, just kind of seeing how, people respond for some reason when we reach out and we're like, "Hey, this is so and so from Bitchin Sauce. We also have music." And people are like, "That's neat. That's different. Okay." But it actually allows for an
Who are you reaching out to? Artists?
yeah, to lots of people, to artists, to just, industry people, and it's amazing how, it's opened the doors there where we can have a conversation, that when Luke was doing music, 12 years ago, it was, definitely a closed door, so that's been fun. I think we never really thought that we were gonna be able to use Bitchin Sauce, to open the doors with music, but
I love
it's been
that.
working, it's great.
I love that. Yeah,
Not
in
every
my early days
diff
and when I was doing the CPG stuff, we would go to festivals and do food, and that relationship between food and music was amazing in terms of creating a community and real in-person connections and relationships for the brand, and it's just fun. And recently was listening to the Guayaki story, and a huge part of their growth was also going to festivals and music and meeting the consumer, the person, the festival goer who wanted to increase their energy to stay up all night and stuff like that. So uh what's your husband's band called?
LA Edwards.
Okay. Okay, cool. And is he still involved with the business with Bitchin Sauce? Does he do both?
He he is, it's so funny. So, like, we were on this was actually hilarious. We were on a double-decker tour bus because we had, like, 14 people. We have 5 kids now, so a lot of them are children. But, we had 14 people on this, tour overseas, and it just is so funny 'cause, you have my husband who's gonna go rock out at night, but he spends the day emailing Costco and emailing Trader Joe's, like, talking to everyone, and then, our chief of marketing is his younger brother who's also in the band, and so, then you have like, you go to the other part of the bus and Harry's there, like, emailing everyone, and then they just go and have a great show. It was
Wow.
hilarious, in front of, like,
Work-life
2,000
balance.
people.
That's pretty
It was great.
amazing. You mentioned, I listened to every detail. I've been wondering about Trader Joe's. Are you I don't think I've seen the brand there yet. Is that up on the docket?
Nah, man, we're working on it. We just gotta find their product developers and, just put this little bug in
If
their
you're
ear, like,
listening, product developers, Trader Joe's. Let's
yeah,
get
just like, how about, like, a nice little Bitchin' Joe's? Like, I think we have, really sympathetic branding, and I think it would
I
work well.
like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, Bitchin Joe's. I think it could work pretty well. Um, what else? How about the restaurant? We haven't touched that. Is that experiment still running? Or was it
So the restaurant so what it is it's a beach club, which is like it's the quirkiest little property, but it's in Carlsbad, and we have such a big heart for Carlsbad because of we just got our start there, and our business has been there for so long, and we wanted to, like, give back to the community, so we got this little beach club, and it's super fun. I'm still, working through all the fun, like, planning and developing and, you know, all the fun processes that go into being able to finally open it to the public, but yes, there is a restaurant. It is in the future, and we've got the wheels in motion.
nice? You guys are busy.
We're busy, it's true. We also have coffee too, Bitchin' Coffee. It's
Really?
great.
When did that come
Yeah.
about?
All this happened in, 2020. I think when, like, the world shut down, I got just, like, a lot of energy, that I didn't know what to do with, and so we started, like, 3 businesses.
So what is Bitchin Coffee about? Where are you getting the coffee? Who's growing it? Where and are you opening coffee shops is the plan?
Yeah, so, we are growing it. We have a farm in Kona, and we grow the coffee, we ship it over, and we have a little Bitchin blend. Um, we Our end goal is to have a bunch of little fun kiosks that people can operate, and ultimately, there's, kind of maybe a more charitable aspect to it where we want to help families to be able to, operate and produce their own, enough income to be self-sufficient, and, we think that this is a good way of doing that.
Love that. Anything else that's, like, sort of in your vision?
And you're like, "What are you doing?" Um, there's more things coming, but I think, at this point in time, I gotta see these first ones over the finish line before I get too excited.
I think we've gotten a lot of understanding of who the brand, the product, and even, your personal vision, but are you up for a couple rapid fires just so we can even learn a little bit more about who Starr Edwards is?
Sure.
Amazing. Um, any book that you've recommended the most or has left a lasting impact on you?
The Alchemist
I got a couple.
has lately been, a big one.
Yeah. Speaking of
Yeah.
Trader Joe's, do you have a favorite product there?
Yes, but I don't think they carry it anymore.
What is it?
They used to have these mint UFO wafers,
Mm,
and they were so delicious, and I don't know if they carry it anymore. That, and then they have really delicious, like, the seasonal, holiday JoJos that are dipped, that are covered in chocolate. Those are amazing.
I haven't tried those either. The two my favorite products got discontinued as well, so hopefully that person is listening to this podcast. A purchase under $200 that's provided the most value to you that you made in the last 6 months.
The hair dryer with the brush on it.
Is it the Dyson?
No, it's a Revlon?
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. I have a lot of curly hair under here, so yeah.
You oh.
Signature dish or favorite thing to cook?
My favorite thing to cook is chili verde. I love chili verde so much, and I make it every fall, and it's my favorite.
What is in chili verde?
Chili verde, well, the way that I cook it is, it's just a bunch of peppers, a mess of peppers, like, grilled up, and then tomatillos, and then normally they make it with pork. When I was growing up, we did tofu a lot, but yeah, and you just basically, like, make this saucy deliciousness and then braise the pork in it, and then you eat it with chips or with tortillas or plain. So good.
I should connect you or the brand with the guys that I used to work with at Imlakesh Organics, the superfood company, started a plant-based pork company
Oh,
called
really?
Chi Foods that's made out of
Okay.
Sacha Inchi, the a seed like a perennial vine. It's off
Mm,
a perennial vine, and it's I think you could make your chili with some plant-based pork. Uh,
nice.
one item besides bitchin sauce that's always stocked in your pantry
In my pantry.
or in your fridge.
I wanna say apples? I don't know. It is that I mean, can you say apples? Do you
Yeah,
wanna
of
you have a
course.
CPG brand,
No, no,
or do
and
you want
apples are great. Good, eat more fresh food.
okay.
What's one thing that you're grateful for today?
Well, I'm grateful to be here, that's for sure. And then grateful I'm actually feeling better. I was sick, and I'm feeling better. So I'm really grateful for my health.
Yeah, a lot of things have been going around, I think, in the
Yeah.
air. Uh,
It's amazing how you feel better, and you're just
oh,
like,
yeah.
"Ah,
Yeah, thank God for my health. What, best piece of advice you've ever received?
does it have to be business oriented?"
No.
I think my grandma gave me the best piece of advice. She just said, "Kids are always great." And I think that that's really good advice. Kids are always great.
And you've had 5 kids?
Have 5 kids, yeah.
I think I once heard something like, "Why put off one of the things that's gonna create the most" and it's a kid's family, children. Why put off one of the things that's gonna create the most meaning, in your life? Um,
It's so true, and in our generation especially, I think the way that what I was growing up around, it was a very scary time when I, like, found out that I was pregnant and I was, like, hadn't graduated college yet. It was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. It's the end of my life." But I do remember she was like, "No, kids are always great." And it was great advice. Like, kids are great. This is super fun. Having a great time, especially now.
Yeah.
14-year-old is hilarious now. We, like, watch movies together and cook together. It's great.
Do you envision the kids taking over the business?
I think about it sometimes, but I don't know if they would want to. Don't know if they would want to. They could really love, like, sea creatures and diving, woodworking, maybe, like, ABBA. I don't know if that goes in line with,
Yeah.
running a company, but
What's your guilty pleasure?
I like to read Gothic novels,
I don't even know what a gothic novel is.
like
Mm.
Frankenstein,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
things like that,
Um,
old monster
who do
novels.
you look up to and why?
I Who do I look up to? I'm gonna say I look up to my husband a lot. I think that he is just the sweetest, and he has so much patience with me and patience with our kids, but mostly patience with me, when I have, like, these crazy ideas to do, like, 3 businesses real quick. He's really, really sweet about that. And also, his siblings who work for Bitchin Sauce too, I don't think that they get enough credit for how incredibly generous they are, but I think that they are incredibly generous and, really wish that people could see all of these things that they say yes to also or, get drug along to
And that's
do.
how we got connected, right? Through your husband's brother. Is that Harry? Is it
How
yeah,
Yeah, through
Harry.
Harry. Mhm.
Do you listen to any podcasts?
I've listened to, like, a couple, when we used to do a lot of driving. Um,
Any that have left any sort of lasting impact on you?
yeah, I was listening to one by, the Burt's Bees lady, and that one had lasting impact on me. I remember at the end of it, they were saying that she had been named, like, one of the, world's biggest givers after she did her exit, and I was like, "Man, that's a great thing to be. I want that. I want that I want that accolade. Be a world's greatest
Do
giver."
you have any intention of exiting the company, or do you wanna build this for a lot longer?
We'll see. I mean, with 5 kids right now, there's a lot of things that sometimes we're like, "Oh, man, it would be nice to go and have more time to go do something else," but at the same time, it's been just such an incredible blessing, and we're so grateful to have, the availability that we have to help, our employees' lives and to be a part of this community, so, I mean, there's no
You're
rush.
no I don't think you're a raw vegan anymore, but one thing I like to ask is what is, like, the craziest or most out there thing you do to optimize your well-being if someone looked at in?
To optimize my well-being? Hmm, I don't know if I do anything that crazy anymore. Like, I feel like even exercising is tough when you have a bunch of kids. You have to, like, get up really early, and you're like, "But sleep should be my
Mm.
favorite thing, right?"
Well, sleep is good. Sleep
I think
sometimes is if you sleep a lot is could be kinda crazy too.
I think probably the weirdest thing or the craziest thing is just, like, we have an infrared sauna, and that's, like, "This seems like it's for our health. This is good."
Nice. And a lot of nature around, I would imagine, in Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, my doctor told me to do forest baths. Like, what is